Good evening, we have Red Bulls head coach Hans Backe. The Red Bulls have qualified for the MLS Cup playoffs and will play either next Wednesday or next Thursday in a wild card game on the road. Coach, can I get your general thoughts on the game, please?
I think we handled the game well. It's of course a lot of nervous players, game that means so much to qualify for the playoffs. It's been a rough season for us. But now we're in. I think we should have killed this game in the first half. Definitely scored to 2 or 3-0 quite early, also after 60 minutes, but they stayed in the game, of course, when we didn't take our chances. Happy to see that we could handle this pressure and defend that well and create a number of chances. You're not really sure when you go out if you play. No, we've started against Kansas the last game, very, very nervous, but this was a very big game for us to get into the playoffs, as I said, after a rough season.
Take questions, please. Use the microphone being passed around. Christian and Frank.
Coach, could you just talk about this team peaking at the right time? Last year, it seemed like they peaked maybe a month too soon, and this year, with the results going the way they have been, this seems to be the right stride for the playoffs.
Yeah, if you look at the last month, we were in a good run with 3 wins, 1 tied game before the Kansas game. And of course, going 1 down Thierry after 29 minutes, that is it's difficult away to Kansas, so I don't really count that game. So it looks like that we hopefully are closer to a peak when you go into the playoff.
Take Frank, then Leander.
Coach, when you look at the beginning of the season and all the talent you had lined up and the good start you got off to, could you have ever imagined that it would go down to the final game where you were kind of scraping to get in?
No, probably not. Not after the first 7 games in the league, where we played really well and picked up. I think we were unbeaten after 7 games. Only had conceded 2 goals, looked very solid, and then we had the break for the Gold Cup and lost 6 players, and after that we've been more or less struggling to find our rhythm. But the last 5-6 games looked much better.
Leander, then Jack.
Hans, what do you need to improve on in the playoffs? What's it going to take for you to succeed there?
I don't really know. It's as every game in this league is so even. The first goal is decide a lot of games. We need to defend as we did today. We need to have our key players taking the chances. If you look at Thierry, Luke Rogers, Dane has found definitely his peak as last year, the last 5 games, he's been a threat. So it is so small margins to win these games, but it's like you go into a World Cup or something like that when you play that many games. You just need to find the right performance the right day, that you have the right form, shape just that day. And I think it's even. I think still LA has been outstanding this year, but you know that better than me. The last 2-3 years, that teams that has qualified as number 8 has won the cup, so everything is possible.
Right over here, then Jack, though.
Hans, in a match that Philadelphia needed as much as your team did, were you surprised at all by their lineup or their personnel or configuration out there?
I think we had I know that is it Ranovic, his name, perhaps was injured, who's normally playing. I'm not that quite surprised. Perhaps that Freddie was on the bench and they played. And had also Mawangi on the bench. He's been on the bench after an injury, so came on for the second half. So it looked quite. Because I think if they had won, they would probably have got home advantage in the playoffs. So it was a big game for them too. So I'm not surprised.
Take a few more, Jack.
Hans, coming into the game, how concerned were you guys with playing for the 2, and did you prepare anything special for him? It looked like he was denied the ball.
Yeah, definitely. We said definitely our key in our defending game is that they try to find him from every position on the field, even if it's from centre back, full backs. He has phenomenal timing in his spin runs. But we were able to drop quite quick with our back 4 to cover the space behind us. It was not that much space for him to run into. But the key is our pressing game higher up on the pitch to force them to side passes, support passes. So that worked well.
Go John, then Brian.
I'm just wondering if any of your veteran players who've been here for a while, think about Lynn Richards, guys like that, said anything in the locker room before the game or stood up or said anything this week about the importance of this game?
No, but we had a little bit of a different kind of team talk today. In the locker room, we made more of a motivation video and things like that, just to change things. And it looked that everyone were very, very sharp from the first second.
Take Brian, then Ian.
Hans, what was the nature of that video precisely? And you mentioned Dane being on his peak at the right moment. I guess he has a history of that for this team. I mean, is there something about his persona that down the stretch in a playoff run or during the playoffs he seems to come up with?
I think the video was more about individual stuff, motivation so far, our season so far, you can call it. But we tried to find out the positive thing for that video. So it was more individual. Dane, I don't know why, it was the same last year. The 5-6 last games, he was absolutely flying, and he is quite of a versatile player, and can play us, wide up front, always a threat. I think every team is afraid of him as a striker with his pace. So I don't know really why, but he can run all day long, and I think when he now more and more, I have to say, his runs are more well-timed when we go from final passes from the midfield. So, yeah, hopefully he stays at the same level.
Couple more, Ian.
Hans, you mentioned the team's impressive record when they scored the first goal. I think it's now 35 games undefeated. The flip side is that in 26 games where you've conceded first, you've only come back to win 1. So in the playoffs, does that sort of brittleness bother you, and how do you think the team can address adversity if
I
that
think we
happens?
have a little bit better stats than that, what I've heard. Perhaps not turn and won, but picked up a lot of tied games.
7 ties, I think.
Something like that, yeah. So we haven't lost that many games. But it's also tight in this league, and perhaps we were a little bit naive in the beginning when we tried to, not in the beginning of the season, but tried to stick all the time to a kind of football that we could control the game, dictate the game. Probably just need a little bit more physical strength in this league to battle and compete.
Last question in the back.
Hans, I was looking for, and I did look very hard, for some creative midfield play from your team. I didn't see it. I saw it on long balls to Luke Rogers all the time. Pretty crude stuff. Is that the way it's going to be?
I think this is a special game. We said that this game, just because we have given away a lot of unforced errors in our build-up when we try to come out from the back four. We said for this game it has to be a quite direct game, it has to be cynical, and don't give away any unforced errors.
Cynical?
But still, yeah, cynical, how can you translate that? It's more like, just be direct, don't take any chances. If you can go forward instead of have too much possession. But hopefully, that's where our target when we started to try to, as you're talking about getting a creative midfield player, a little bit more possession, final passes from midfield. But today it was a very direct, long ball passing to Luke Rogers and Dane Richards.
Well, I used the word crude. Would you agree with that?
No, you're too rough. You're too rough, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. Union head coach Peter Novak will follow in this room. Rebels and Union players will be available in their respective locker rooms. Thank you.